right, so thank you for joining us, everyone. In case you're not familiar with Pathway Inclusion Center, we are a 501c3 organization. I'm one of the co-founders along with Stacy Borgio, and Pathway Inclusion Center offers preschool, inclusive childcare, tutoring, therapy, and behavior services. And as have many other businesses, we had to temporarily close as of March 16th due to COVID-19. And we have been trying to find other ways that we can reach out to the community and provide some resources and information for you all. So we came up with a webinar series we thought would be a good idea. So I am super excited to introduce our first guest today, Dr. Brianne Tomaszewski. Hi, Brianne.
Hi, everybody.
All right, so Brianne is from University of North Carolina TEACCH Autism program, and she's an assistant research professor, and she's also in the Department of Psychiatry and a faculty fellow at the Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute. So thank you so much for joining us today. We're really excited to have you here and to hear from you. So why don't we start out with you just telling us a little bit about what you and your team do at UNC?
Absolutely, and I'm so happy to be here, so thank you for having me. So as she mentioned, I'm at both the TEACCH Autism program, which provides clinical services to individuals and their families across the lifespan for individuals with autism, and I'm a researcher there, so I'm working to help disseminate and identify the best evidence-based practices for individuals with autism. And at Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute, I'm also involved in the autism research team and looking for ways to identify new evidence-based practices, developing resources for families, and researching school-based interventions for students with autism across the lifespan as well.
All right, awesome. We're very grateful for all the work that you guys do. It's very important work. And especially those of us that have family members with autism, we're especially grateful. So your team recently authored 2 different toolkits to offer support for individuals with autism. And when I saw the first one come out, I was thankful, obviously, but also really surprised that you all were able to get it out so quickly. I think it came out like the 2nd or 3rd week in March was when I first saw it. And I just couldn't believe that you guys had put that together so quickly. So thank you for getting these toolkits out there. They're available for free on your website. And we'll share that information a little bit later. But I was just wondering if you could walk us through the first toolkit that you guys released, which is called Supporting Individuals with Autism Through Uncertain Times. And I am going to go ahead and pull it up right now.
I just want to highlight here that we were a huge team led by Dr. Kara Hume at the Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute, as well as other investigators, Jessica Dijkstra-Steinbrenner and Ann Sam, and a variety of us. We worked really hard as a really big team, and we see on the front page all of those names that show up as the authors. Everyone contributed to kind of the narrative and the resources, and we hope we brought all of our different experiences together to really help families, because we know there's a wide variety of needs for individuals, children, young adults, adolescents, and so it took a really big team to make sure we could get it out to families.
Awesome. Yes, thank you for pointing that out. All right, here we go. Okay, for some reason it's not letting me pull up the PDF from your
You want
website.
me to try sharing my screen?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay, so I
It's
have
worked
the
for me
PDF
every other
open.
times, but
This is kind of one of like the main things I think of supporting individuals through uncertain times is we are all having to be very flexible and just
yes, for sure.
all the things that are happening during this time, which technology issues is an everyday thing for all of us, I think.
Yes.
So the toolkit.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just zoom in a little bit. Hopefully it's big enough. Let me know.
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay. So again, just highlighting that this was developed by a really large team at Frank Porter Graham Child Development Institute, and we all come from different backgrounds. So education, human development and family studies, psychology, occupational therapy, applied behavioral analysis. We're using all of these techniques in the literature to help provide these resources. And we really felt that this was the necessary during this time as everybody is dealing with uncertainty, and we know that children and young adults require various needs and supports, and these are going to likely be increased during these uncertainty or these periods of uncertainty as we think about the importance of routine for lots of individuals with disabilities and their families. So we have developed and provided kind of 4 or 7 support strategies. And I'll walk through kind of each support strategy and highlight a few of the resources that I think have been especially useful for families, and just to highlight what those look like and how you're able to kind of individualize them.
Perfect.
Yeah, and so the support strategies are kind of listed here under support understanding, offer opportunities for expression, prioritizing coping and calming skills, maintaining routines, building new routines. We call it, fostering connection, so physical distancing rather than social distancing, and then being aware of changing behaviors.
I like that you guys call it physical distancing. I hadn't noticed that until just now.
Yeah, so we really wanted to develop some resources that can help caregivers and individuals and their and other family members through these times. And we hope that all of them can be individualized, because we know there's a wide variety of individuals who have various different needs. So one of the first things that I think is really difficult during this time is understanding. And so the first strategy we focused on is really supporting individuals and understanding what's happening during this pandemic. And when we first developed this, we thought, this would be something about understanding COVID and what COVID is, but also we know 7 weeks into most of us being at home that everything is changing every week and things are constantly kind of changing. We're getting recommendations to wear masks or not, and then recommendations to go out and what those look like. And so the whole time, these resources for supporting and understanding can help during these continually changing circumstances. And so starting with kind of describing and describing what this kind of means for the individual and their environment in terms of at school, home, like being at home for school. And so some of the resources that I wanted to point out help kind of explain these situations in evidence-based practice ways. And so the 2 that I'm going to point out are social narratives. And so social narratives can be really helpful because they are stories that kind of clarify the information in a simple and using concrete language and terms, and add visual supports when needed. And also can use technology. So I'm going to just show one example. Oops, I'll just scroll down. Okay, so here's an example kind of about a social story. It's called COVID-19. And It's a social story that has a couple of sentences as well as some visual supports. So the social story says, right now, lots of people are getting sick with the virus. Doctors and leaders are working hard to keep everyone healthy. I need to help keep myself safe and healthy too. School is closed so students and teachers can stay healthy. While school is closed, it is important for everyone to stay home and not visit other people. While I'm at home, I can play, look at books, and learn. I also need to wash my hands a lot with soap and water. This family. But so why we now need to wear masks, we can think about different ways to tell the stories to update to our current situations. And not all of them, you can add more or less text depending on the individual level needs and what they may understand best and what works best for them. Visual supports are really helpful. So even if we think, my son or daughter or family member can read, they don't need any pictures. During these times of stress, sometimes kind of bringing back in visual supports can be really helpful, even if, their reading level is, they can take on large amounts of text.
Yeah, I know so schedules are, have worked really well for both of my kids. Even during times where I thought, they don't need that. It just makes the whole process go so much smoother with whatever we're doing.
Yeah. And even for those of us, who in times of stress, sometimes I think pictures are just much more helpful. So the next resource I'm going to show is another example of kind of how to use visual supports and washing your hands. And so even we have, listed out here, like we're told to wash our hands, and the CDC has also provided some great visuals of what that actually looks like. And so here's just an example of how to break it down using visual supports and concrete steps, so that when we're telling individuals and children and young adults, like, you have to wash your hands, then we have kind of a way, there's multiple steps in that. And the recommendation is that you rub your hands for 20 seconds. And so having pictures and tasks, as you can see above, there's also, you can use real pictures, you can use clip art, you can use drawings. I mean, these are all sorts of ways you can individualize these supports. And we also just have them down in text as well. So really whatever level is needed for the individual. And I'm just kind of scrolling through these quickly to go through the next support strategy, but these are all available for free.
Yeah, these are great. I wish we had time to go through them all.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's good for families to know that these are out there, and they can go download this entire toolkit from your website for free. So if they see one that they like, that we're not exactly going into detail on, they can reach out there to access it.
And even, yeah. And so you don't have to download this whole packet. You can print just the pages. The second support strategy is offering opportunities for expression. And so I think this is a time where it can be really hard to express what is happening and what you're feeling. And so, there's lots of unexpected changes, and they seem to happen pretty frequently still. And so, there may be lots of frustration and fear and anxiety, which can look a lot of different ways for a lot of different people, in terms of more acting out, more tantrums, also withdrawing and
absolutely
activities. And I think some of the just have ideas of kind of offering expression activities. And so this is kind of something like a visual support choice board, where we are looking at, selecting different activities. And so, for example, if someone, a young child is having difficulty and they're starting to throw a tantrum, we can think about, okay, what might be helpful to express your emotions? Potentially, looking at journal or creating a journaling and a daily routine, as well as creating videos or whatever meets the interests of the child and their family and what works for them. And the next one that's really, really important right now is, these are all really important, but we think about kind of prioritizing coping and calming skills during these times of uncertainty. So thinking about coping with all of the news and all of the different changes, as well as self-management and self-care skills. So a lot of times coping and calming routines are very important in daily life. And we hope, sometimes children and young adults will already be using some of these skills in their daily lives, hoping that during this time where it's likely that anxiety is very heightened, that we're continuing building on the strengths of the skills that we've used in the past for coping and calming, and also providing additional supports if we need to. And so I'm just going to show kind of an example of calming routine, and then another coping strategy that's really strongly associated with positive outcomes is exercise and physical activity.
I know that particular strategy has come in useful for me over the past couple of months.
Yeah.
Just finding time to like do more yoga or meditation or go for a walk or just anything.
Yeah, I think me too. And I have to kind of remind myself to do it. And so one way that, and I even have a visual support. So here's an example you'll see from the toolkit. But for me, I actually have an index card with my calming routine that I keep by my desk because it's
I
a
love
nice
that.
visual reminder. So strategies are really useful for everyone. And I think we can, we can provide individualization. So this is just an example of thinking about how we can calm our body in the moment of high anxiety and then also our mind. And so we typically talk about using deep breathing as well as some tense and releasing exercises to help calm our body. And then we use sometimes, a visualization or a distraction. In this particular example, it's pictures of taking, 4 deep breaths, and you breathe in and out while you count to 4. In the second example, it's kind of clenching your fists, tensing them, and then relaxing them 4 times. And then the third step, focusing on distraction, is counting to 10. And the numbers are listed here as a reminder. And then after that, hopefully the body has started to relax, and you remind yourself, like, good job for using your coping routine. And sometimes we can give ourselves a self-reward. So a good job, some praise, maybe looking at, having a preferred activity after completing some work and getting through the difficult situation. But using these strategies can be really helpful, and having visual supports can help in the moment to remember what the steps are. I know for me,
Yes.
when I'm really anxious, it's hard for me to remember what to do. So having the visual support by my desk has been really helpful. And then we have a variety of other examples of different calming and coping routines. And for physical activity, we have another example of a choice board. So thinking of different opportunities to go outside, such as lifting weights, inside and then outside for playing ball. So there's different options listed with visual icons. You can also just draw them or take pictures using pictures of your family members, make pictures of your favorite characters doing some of these things too. Whatever can be kind of motivating for helping them choose choices. And so additional pictures here are dance, climbing stairs, or doing yoga for inside activities. There's also play ball, yard work, take a walk, and go on a nature hike for outside activities.
I like that. And I know when my kids were, when they were first starting out using visuals, I had to go around and take pictures of their actual items because it was just more concrete to them and they understood it better. And then as time went on and they got more used to using visual supports, I could transition to either just the icons or just the text even eventually. So
yeah,
a lot of different options.
Such a great point. Yeah, I think that I've, especially in my work, we've always kind of taken pictures of familiar items. It's more concrete and makes sense to them. Sometimes, for example, in this picture, climbing stairs is a picture of feet and an arrow, and that may not make sense to a younger child.
Right.
Kind of a picture of them actually doing stairs to understand what that means. But as you said, as they may get more used to visual supports, or depending on their developmental level, they may be able to understand icons. But either way, it's kind of trying to figure out, like I mentioned, like just what's going to be most motivating and most successful in helping them make choices.
Absolutely.
And we also have kind of some more detailed exercise activities and different kinds of apps that, you know, you talked about being mindful, and there's lots of available free apps for a lot of different activities. There's free apps and resources listed throughout both the original resource and then the adult one as well. And so our next support strategy is all about maintaining routines. And so it's definitely important to adjust to our new circumstances, and we'll talk about that next. But when it's possible, having some of the similar things about a daily routine can be really helpful in trying to maintain during these times of uncertainty. So for example, if you have kind of the similar dinner routine every night with family members that individuals really are used to, like keeping those same steps and the same kind of patterns that you would normally do with your family. And one of the ways that we can think about what can be helpful in maintaining routines is some of the structured household chores. And so thinking about being involved in chores that are going to be done regardless of a pandemic or not, and thinking about how to support individuals in helping with these chores and maintaining the chores they were working on before. And so sometimes what can be really helpful is what we call a task analysis for maintaining routines and helping with household chores. And so task analyses can break down activities into small, discrete steps that are, you can use visual supports. I'll show some examples. And we have a template here that can be used for just a variety of different chores or even just daily activities. And so I'll show you, we have kind of a tips for what creating a task analysis is. So we choose a task with a definitive start and end, such as setting the table or getting dressed, brushing teeth, making the bed, writing down the steps as you do the task or as you watch an adult do the task. Sometimes it can be really helpful to have two people kind of look in what the task is to make sure you get all the steps. There's often more steps than you think if you think about something like brushing your teeth or getting dressed. Writing kind of the final steps on a piece of paper to guide the instruction. I missed one, giving the steps for someone else to try to follow just to make sure they're clear. And then if you needed, you can draw or take picture cues for each step so that they have that visual support. It can be of them actually doing the task. That's what we most often see, but there's other visuals you can use as well, like we talked about. And then also kind of, if there's still needs for supports for teaching aspects of the tasks, using, the prompting strategy that fits your child best. So whether, they might get easily frustrated if you're kind of starting with just telling them what to do and they don't know where to start. And so you may need to start with more assistance. We call that kind of most to least prompting, where you're kind of helping them put the toothpaste on the toothbrush. And some learners kind of would prefer to be more independent first and try it themselves and only need support if they need to. So really just kind of meeting the level of support where the individual's at. And so I'm just going to scroll through to show some examples.
Unloading the dishwasher has a lot of steps.
Yeah, so this is just an example of unloading the dishwasher. So for me, in my head, I think, you open the dishwasher, you take it, you put it away. Yeah. Well, there are 20 steps that we can think of when we developed kind of this resource.
Wow.
And then another one, even making a snack. So 16 steps here, where it's kind of like a grid, and these task analyses you can print out and have as like a checklist. So if your goal is to have an individual work on making their snack independently 3 times during the week, they can kind of, this is what we call kind of self-monitoring and self-management. They're able to kind of keep track of what steps they were able to do. And sometimes we can record, if they missed a step, they can go back and look and say, oh, I forgot to, close the box. And so I need to close the box before I put it in the cupboard. These are steps 9 and 10. And so we think there's target steps listed 1 through 16. And this is going to be hopefully a helpful way to help individuals complete tasks. Again, you can add pictures. And so if there's a very specific kind of routine or a specific kind of snack or unloading a specific type of dishwasher, you can add pictures of those very specific things that are in the house and in the home environment where they are, so that it can make the most sense. And then we also have kind of a task analysis template that can be edited to add reduce steps, add pictures. And so it's just kind of a blank grid for individualization of
that's nice. That's helpful.
Yeah. And so then now going to building new routines, because it is absolutely necessary. There's many new kind of demands of parents, especially parents who are trying to both homeschool, work from home, and take care of their children, that there may be kind of multiple family members and different scenarios going on. So kind of thinking about what are some ways to help build new routines. And I'm going to highlight some of what I think are really important in our daily schedules. And so giving routines are. And so I'm going to show an example. So here is an example of a daily schedule. And so in this daily schedule, there's some icons. Again, these can be replaced with pictures where the task is listed: wake up, brush teeth, get dressed, eat breakfast, read for 30 minutes, exercise for 30 minutes, and then a done column where you can kind of check these off as you go throughout the day. And these daily schedules can include the new routines that are virtual virtual classroom meetups, different activities, like exercise, so that when you take a break, and you're not going to be in school from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. And so incorporating whatever the new routine is, but having it presented in a visual way so that the expectations are very clear of what the day is going to look like. And having routines likely that might need to change daily, making sure these are made daily and updated so that individuals are just at least prepared for the day ahead. And here's kind of a blank template that can be edited and added and personalized.
These have been a lifesaver for our family.
Yeah, that's so great. Do you guys use pictures or what do you use?
Yeah, I usually just look up like images on Google Images and print them out and laminate them, and we do the whole Velcro thing so they can feel accomplished when they like take it off and put it in the done envelope, or
Yeah, that's great segue into like if you don't have a laminator or Velcro at home. Another great visual, are sticky notes. If you have sticky notes or just like stickers or pieces of paper with tape, it's really nice to physically be able to move that to be done to the done category. You can even have, like you mentioned, like envelopes where you take it down and it's completely gone. Sometimes that works well. And so just having this schedule of that and that feeling of accomplishment of getting through one task and moving on to the next task is another example of kind of the self-reward and self-monitoring. So practicing, monitoring that you're doing it and then rewarding yourself by being able to mark it off done.
Yeah, I know nothing is more satisfying for me than marking something off of my to-do list.
Yes, that is.
It doesn't count until I physically mark it off.
Absolutely. And I think that individuals, that if they can have kind of some control over part of their schedule and routines, that can help them through it and feel accomplished in doing something. Another thing is a template for the sticky notes. Is that also when you're creating these, we can think about offering choices so that they do feel like they have some control, because I think right now it's really hard to have a sense of control over anything that's happening. So for example, if you want to do your schoolwork, do you want to do it in the morning, or do you want to after exercise? And so having those opportunities to make choices and creating a daily schedule can be really helpful too. Because not everything has to be done at a very specific time.
Right. Yeah, I think we're all learning that and adjusting to that.
I think all of us are starting, our work hours are no longer 9 to 5 and whenever we can. And so all of us are adjusting to that. And so helping each other and our families make these schedules together will give us more sense of control. And then I'm gonna scroll down. There's lots of, these are just examples of some choices. So this is one sheet where it's weekly choices and goals. And so there's also icons here where the individual can choose one thing I want to read, one thing I want to do outside, a game, a way to exercise, a chore, or how to be helpful, something to do with family members, a show or a movie, and one thing I want to learn. And so thinking about knowing what those choices are and what the goals are, they can then help in creating kind of the weekly and daily schedules as we try to get a sense of, what activities are going to make up my day.
Yeah.
And lots of resources again.
Oh yes, we use many of those.
Yeah,
every day.
all for movement, for education, for fun, lots of different activities. Just to highlight, this may be a time that screen time is increased, and so there's trying to plan in the daily schedule when these transitions are going to occur, because these transitions may be more difficult. Trying to transition from screen time to school may be really difficult if someone is just, not wanting to get off a screen to go to another screen to have to do a non-activity. So just using kind of the daily schedules and kind of the first then visual supports approach can be helpful during those transitions.
And there are timer apps also. So those come in handy. My kids like those. Yeah.
Yeah, and those are visual, timer apps. There's definitely lots of free options. There's a list of them on a page here too.
Perfect.
And then talking about kind of that social connections, even though from a distance, this is important for individuals with autism who are often faced with feeling socially isolated, and then this may be worsened during the lack of kind of opportunities to be in environments where social interactions take place. And so it can be helpful for individuals to support in having kind of explicit instruction in how to make virtual connections. And so scheduling time for connections, or you might not normally do, to check in on family, friends. There's also lots of ways to play virtual games or participate in kind of volunteering or working with other groups, and there's lots of different apps and resources available. And so this is just another example of how to use a task analysis. And so we have one with calling with FaceTime, and so how to, if you have an Apple device, use FaceTime to connect with family or friends. And there's other apps to kind of make videos with family and friends, as well as lots of different ways to chat and makes virtual connections. And kind of the last of the 7 support strategies are kind of just thinking about all that fear and frustration and anxiety that may lead to kind of increased difficulties in expressing behaviors and kind of making sure that we're kind of aware of the mental health load that this may cause for lots of individuals. And so it might be worth looking into other resources. And so in our guide we have a list of kind of crisis supports in the case of there's any signs of anxiety or depression. There's a lot of virtual telehealth resources that they're constantly updating and including more opportunities. I know insurance, Medicaid especially, is starting to cover more of these services as telehealth. And so if there's ever any concern for any mental health difficulties, reaching out to these crisis supports is really going to be essential for families and individuals to get them what they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that is kind of an overview of this supporting individuals with autism through uncertain times developed for kind of all ages and individualization.
Okay. And then you guys created a second toolkit, which is a companion guide, and it's focused more specifically on adults with autism, correct?
Yeah, yes. And let me see, I have that up as well. And so once we released this toolkit, we actually got some requests. We kind of developed some adult-specific resources from self-advocates and families. And so we were, in response to that, kind of this companion, as you mentioned, is mostly full of resources, and again, led by a very strong team with Ann Sam and Becky Dees and all these wonderful people at FPG. And we know that the resources for adults might differ than those that are needed for young children. And so again, we developed this in response, and we kind of focused on 4 different topic areas. So again, focusing on supporting living skills and shopping and grocery shopping and kind of all the tasks that we normally need to do, and how those social connectedness instead of in times of physical distancing, and again, mental health, as that's really important for adults as well. So the report has nice list of resources within each, and so I'll kind of walk through them here. And so we also included a lot, because by the time we developed the second companion, there's been a ton of development from other resources as well that are helpful. We've tried to include links to those here too, because we know that sometimes it can be overwhelming, and so we try to include as much information in one place as possible. And so we're also, again, continually having updated guidelines to remain safe as possible. And so these websites can have those updates as well. And so for COVID, for adults who may be at higher risk for developing symptoms, thinking about, what happens if someone does get sick. And we have, again, just kind of using concrete steps that have been the guidelines, and using visual supports. So this is what to do if I'm sick. And the first box lists, stay home except to see a doctor, stay away from people and pets. So kind of talking about isolating if you have symptoms, really focusing on calling your doctor and wearing a mask as well. And so all of kind of the guidelines that we received from the health agencies, just putting it into a list with visual supports, and then more information from CDC, so that you can link to all additional resources, and in case these guidelines change. And also, individuals may experience family members who are sick, especially as the testing gets increased and we're seeing more and more individuals get sick, kind of how to help others, because I think during this time individuals do want to help and may not know where to start. And so thinking about looking at their symptoms and helping others kind of identify when they may need greater assistance, and how to kind of think about protecting yourself and others from getting it as well. And again, just some additional resources here for caring for those who may be sick. And as I mentioned, just a ton of great websites. I know the Autism Society of America has a really great online toolkit focused on COVID, and there's lots of different CDC resources and individuals, specific for individuals with autism, but just general resources as well. And then thinking about daily living resources. Similarly here, we have to think about our daily schedules and the importances of routine, but also when our schedules include things like grocery shopping and running errands, what that may look like, and how we may update our chores based on the guidelines for kind of recent guidelines for helping kill the virus and maintaining social distancing requirements as well. And so this is just, we can think about for adults, they may have more detailed daily schedules. And so it can be helpful to use kind of a written checklist, as we've seen in our original example. There can also be daily planners or a calendar. And there's also lots of adults may use their phone. And so using the phone calendar to write in things. Trying to figure out, now that I'm staying home, when and where am I going to look at my schedule? Because I think for many of us, the days are running together, and it can be hard to you're not going anywhere other than running your errands. And so like maintaining, a new routine where you put your schedule at your workspace or in the kitchen or some essentials that you can look at it.
I really like Google Keep. I don't know if you've ever used it. I just started using it recently, and it transfers across all of my devices and all of my platforms. And it also has like a checkbox feature. So it makes me feel very accomplished.
That's great.
But I actually am able to check the box next to each item.
Nice. Yeah, I definitely use my phone. And I also use a paper planner because I like that visual checking off as well as digital. So it's to kind of, again, think about what works best and what's most satisfying, because it is super nice to check things off. I think one thing, we may not be adding these to our normal planners, but we can, be really helpful during this time to kind of, when are you going to do your self-care activities? When are you going to eat? And when are you going to exercise? And now that you may not be having kind of the commute times and going place to place to get some of these activities done, like if your exercise group is canceled, or if you're no longer going to school or work, when are you going to do these activities during the day and balance it with your self-care and household activities, as well as caring for others, such as partners or kids or parents? And also, we've kind of talked about this, but using a timer can be helpful. If you need reminders, to kind of using alarms to help you check your schedule, or alarming yourself for events that you may not normally need an alarm for because you're at work or you're at school. Having those alarms that, oh, hey, wait, now it's time to go on to Zoom for my class, or go on to Google Classrooms for my class.
I lose all track of time nowadays.
It's much. Yeah, exactly. I think it's way easier to lose track when you're not in an environment you're used to for all day. So school and work need a reminder that when sometimes just to eat lunch, and that it's dinner time and I can stop working, or reminders. And so here's just kind of another, like a daily schedule example where you have a little bit more detail, and it may look like it has a lot more activities than you might normally put on a planner, but really essential to just kind of structure the day and help. What I really like is building in breaks. I think that it can be hard to remember to take a break when you're in a new environment. And so before at work, you may have had kind of a scheduled coffee break or a lunch break where you would leave and go to the lunch break room. But when you're at home, you necessarily have sometimes, like if you're working in the kitchen, you're not going to leave to have lunch. And so writing it on your schedule, remind yourself to take the time to take a break or eat, I think is really helpful. And then also having the option to be flexible. So sometimes we can be really ambitious in our daily schedules and our lists. And having this option I like here of moving to tomorrow.
Yeah, I like that. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, which I think is just, we don't want to create more stress by not.
Exactly.
So being okay with moving it to later in the week, especially as we're adjusting. I know it's been a while now, but with this extending to unknown date, it can be just really important to maintain that flexibility. Mm-hmm. And again, we have the template as well, and where these can be changed to different titles, where there's the time, the activity, reminders, complete or move to tomorrow. That can be visualized. And then another kind of new, area for everyone is online and curbside grocery shopping. So we have resources for how do you even go online and start an account and pick an option, and what might be helpful to in your deciding, like, are you going to do delivery or are you going to go pick it up? What kinds of store do you want to go to, the grocery store or another store? And then there's just tips for pickup, delivery, very detailed steps, and then once the groceries are in your home. So really kind of outlining this whole complicated process with visual supports. One thing that I think that I just want to point out is just some problem solving. So I know that there have been missing items in stores for a long time, just toilet paper and flour and yeast.
Lysol wipes.
Or what, yes. So basically, it's very likely when you do online shopping or curbside shopping that the store is not going to have every single item, and they may have different brands than what we're online, and the prices may be different. And so you just have to really, if you don't want to buy a different brand, that's okay. And just, you'll try, and again, next time to get the brand you want. If you're okay with a different brand, just trying to be flexible and choosing the items available. And it is really hard that you may get something that you don't like in the process of not being able to choose it or just giving what's available. And just, keeping in mind that having to be flexible and knowing that everyone's doing the best they can, and you can try again at your next trip as well. And again, healthy websites and tricks and tips and checklists. So this is another like task analysis that kind of lists out, when and what. So with curbside grocery, there's, before you shop online, you should do things like make a grocery list, then what to do when you're shopping online, then before you go to the store, then what to do at the store, and then also when you get home. And so just kind of breaking it down. And we also have like what if about going in-store shopping. And so there's very similar kind of items, and just talking about this specifically, how to shop in the store, and then problem solving for being in the store, as well as websites related to going to the store, and again, an in-store kind of shopping checklist. And then we go through the pharmacy as well, as many individuals may need to run errands and pick up their prescriptions at their pharmacies. And more daily living skills, thinking about cleaning tips. And so kind of what has been recommended by the CDC. And this was adapted, a lot of these were adapted from guidelines from the CDC. And so thinking about, what to use. This is talking about cleaning supplies like soap and water, bleach, what other materials like a bucket and rags, and then gloves if you prefer. And then some also problem solving. So what if you don't have cleaning supplies or it's hard to find disinfectant? So, trying to just use soap and water, and it's okay if you don't have disinfectant, and if you don't have gloves, because stores are also sold out of gloves, that's okay. and different websites linked to cleaning, as well as another checklist. So all of these are just great tips and strategies to help maintain kind of ongoing routines and updating to build new routines based on the current situation, with additional websites as well developed by the Autism Society of Minnesota, as well as the Autism Society of America toolkits.
Yeah, there's so much information here for families.
Yeah, and then also, you know, that social connectedness. So similar to the original one, there's just some additional kind of things around Zoom, and so some guides for how to use Zoom, how to create a meeting.
Oh, this is amazing.
This goes through very instructions on how to, you know, I think it can be confusing on how to do all the steps and use these apps, since this is just a visual guide of how to actually even get started in Zoom at all.
Yeah.
And so picture the site with the specific steps and how to test your sound and video quality. There's always tends to be issues with one or the other, and so opportunities for settings and things like how to just start your video, how to invite others, and schedule, and then how to start it. And so there's also, in case you're being invited to Zoom, how you then just join the video from Zoom from an invite from family or friends. Some kind of additional instructions. Zoom has a lot of resources on their website. And you can also do it from your phone, which is really helpful too. And if you don't have a computer at the time, and so just different problem solving as well if some of the settings, audio don't work. And then one thing that's really fun is, you know, thinking about ways to use Zoom and other video chat apps. And this was developed from a website, a resource, a newspaper that had a list of kind of ideas like taking part in a virtual pub quiz or just quizzes, kind of having digital dinner parties, doing painting by number I've seen on Zoom, virtual book clubs, as well as charades or karaoke. You can get really creative with different kinds of games and communicating.
Yeah, these applications have been so helpful during this time. I mean, I can't even imagine, you know, what the past couple of months would have been like. I've had several of the virtual dinner parties with my colleagues and such. So it really makes a difference to feeling connected or staying connected socially.
Yeah, and I think actually, you know, some of these are, you know, hoping to maintain in person. So if you start, you know, this game night, you may be able to establish a new kind of social group in the future. And I know that this has been an opportunity for those to connect with friends who live far away, family who lives far away, and kind of building in these new routines of making these social connections from a distance, even during a non-pandemic when you have friends and family who live far away. I know some of young adults who kind of, when some friends go away to college and they're in colleges in different places, or they're still staying at home, that this can transition. And so using the time to stay connected, those friends and families, again, who live apart, can be sustained beyond this kind of pandemic.
Yeah.
And again, lots of different websites for different resources and support and ideas, and on why social distancing is important. Some graphics there. And then finally, again, just some mental health resources. So thinking about coping strategies and how to deal with all these changes, and additionally exercise, and also, of course, websites. And so this is one strategy that was adapted from a psychologist. It's called Face COVID, and it's just this way to kind of remember a coping routine and calming strategies. So thinking about what you can control. So the F is focused on what you can control. So you may say to yourself, I can control what I'm doing right now. The A is acknowledge your thoughts and feelings. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, anxious, sad, scared, just kind of acknowledging that they exist. Kind of coming back into your body. So it's similar to the previous calming routine I described, kind of like stretching or shrugging your shoulders. I know lots of tension can be built up when you're in moments of stress and anxiety, and kind of try to engage in what you're doing. And until you're kind of relaxed, repeating this kind of face portion 2 or 3 times. And then kind of, okay, you know, what can I do during COVID? So the COVID part focuses on what can you do this week, you know, to help yourself, help others, write it in your schedule. You can kind of acknowledge your feelings again that are normal and validating them, that it's okay. How do you want to treat yourself during this time and others? Self-love, compassion, kindness. Kind of if you're struggling with things like grocery shopping or figuring out how to work technology for school or work, who and where can you get help and assistance and support from using these resources, using websites, asking your family members, friends, and then also always importantly during this time to disinfect and distance. And so this is just a nice kind of reminder of a coping routine that gives you face COVID and can help individuals feeling with some sense of calmness as well as being empowered.
Yeah, I just saw that the other day on a webinar, I think, that I was attending for the first time. So this is the second time I've seen this.
Yeah, I know that we
tool.
I think it's just a really nice like way to remember some of these strategies.
Yeah. And
then again, exercise, additional, you know, exercising, meditation, having fun, all care activities and connecting with others. And then finally, again, similarly, just crisis supports, because mental health can be really important for adults as well. And additional kind of websites about mental health. And so just there's lots of different strategies from all sorts of different mental health resources that are really all posting more guides and tips to help kind of deal with flexibility and coping and calming routines and mental health supports during this time. And that is the adult companion.
All right, awesome. These are 2 fantastic resources for families. I think they'll come in really helpful if people haven't started using them already. I know I have. And then I also wanted to talk about, you guys have some free online autism modules on your website as well. So do you mind sharing a little bit about
Sure.
what types of things are included in those modules or where people can find them?
Yeah, so I will share my screen and just show kind of the homepage again of they're called resources and modules. And we also, these modules are focused on the 27 evidence-based practices that the National Professional Development Center on Autism developed. And we actually also released our new report this week.
I saw that. I was so excited to see that.
So, yeah, so these are, you know, a large effort identifying basically all of the research from 1990 to 2017 with plans to update through 2020 of identifying all the studies that are providing support for the strategies that are then created into these resources. And so there's if you're interested, there's links on the website of where that report is, and it can describe how the evidence-based practices are identified. And but the Affirm modules are just free online modules and resources that teach through all the specific evidence-based practices. And so we also, for the new one that was just developed, is just an introduction to autism spectrum disorder. So for anyone who is new to working or supporting or having a family member or wants to just learn more about autism spectrum disorder. These are video modules that have a lot of activities as well as resources within them to help understand autism. And then there's, for each of the evidence-based practices, they go through just to kind of show you what the structure is. They go through kind of the EVP basics. So, you'll learn about what is an evidence-based practice and the specific one that the module is on. How do you actually use the evidence-based practice, and resources and like things that are downloadable for you to plan. And so what the steps are for planning, and then what the options are for you to choose in the situation that works. And then steps for actually then using the evidence-based practice, and then how to kind of monitor and adjust as necessary. And they all kind of go through these kind of specific areas specific to that evidence-based practice. And again, all free. They have video examples. They're really designed for educators, but they can also be really helpful for families as well who are interested in learning about these tools and strategies.
Yeah, I think it's important for families to know where educators and practitioners get their information for which evidence-based practices to use. And this is one of those resources where families can access that information. So, and especially now when we're doing virtual learning with our kids, I think it's even more important if we want to maybe find an evidence-based practice that we can implement ourselves at home.
Absolutely.
So,
and like this, I think, especially now, you're absolutely right with homeschooling. This resource and kind of how to select an evidence-based practice can be really helpful, because we've kind of we have a bunch of information and, what kind of behavior or skill are you working on specifically academically or challenging behavior? And then what kind of the current status of that behavior, and all sorts of resources that can be especially helpful during this kind of online homeschooling stage.
All right. So I think that is it. Let me just go ahead and get back here. So just thank you for coming on today and chatting with me and sharing all of the information that your team has put together over the past couple of months or years even. And thank you for all the work that you guys are doing. We really appreciate it. And I think these toolkits, like I said, will be so valuable for families. So, that's it for today. The toolkits, I just want to acknowledge the funding acknowledgement from the Institute of Education Sciences for that work that was done on those toolkits. And we do have some more upcoming webinars on everything from IEP advocacy to assistive technology to occupational therapy. So stay tuned for more webinars, and we hope you all are staying healthy and well and continue to light the way for all abilities. All right. Thanks, Brianne.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right. Talk to you soon.
Bye.